Hello, Mouvo people. Hello. So good to be here. Thank you so much. Wow. I was speaking to Raquel today in the morning, and actually I changed my whole presentation because she's pretty much into the low-tech theme, and we, have so many parallels. And yeah, actually, this is another talk now. I will speak about the demo scene, which fits very well into the thing. So yeah, let's do this. So here's a little video of who I am, what I do, and to give you a little impression.
Hey, my name is Tim, and I build a community and an online learning platform for creative coding. We have this incredible gap between creativity and technology. There's an elusive need for people working in this intersection, not just in the economy. Depicting and questioning the digital is an especially important and exciting field in the arts. I help young people becoming creative technologists, those who are often traumatized through uninspiring and misleading courses for programming. Breaking this barrier reveals a world of unexplored territories.
Yeah, this is a little... Thank you so much. Thank you. This was just a little 1-minute video about where I wanted to introduce my idea. Actually, this is something that I drew while working on my master thesis. And my master thesis was pretty much about the fact that nothing ever had more influence onto design, or graphic design specifically, than computation. I grew up in an agency family, my father had an agency and so on. So this is a very important topic for me. And what I do today, which is my main job, is creating my website, which is an e-learning platform for people, mostly from the field of graphic design, but also beyond, that want to learn creative coding in the context of art and design. And that's pretty much fun. It's based on a Patreon community, and we are a community of like 700 people. And they help me. It's crowdfunding, crowdsourcing at the same time. And it's a lot of fun. This is my website. So if you want to learn creative coding, you can go to my website. These are my courses. Click on a course. There's me explaining stuff. And I'm working on this since years. I try to find great ways, new entrances, and also try to involve philosophical ideas into the learning process of creative coding. All right. So today, it's completely different. Actually, it's not different. It's something that I did last year, getting a message by a friend. Oops. I was a curator for the Demo Festival, which is a motion graphics festival in... oh my goodness, wait. Gotta put this to mute. That's me. Wow, really? Thank you so much, Vitek. Actually, we met there, right? So that was pretty awesome. That is the largest outdoor exhibition in the world at that point. All the screens in the Netherlands, the out-of-home displays were used to show motion graphics. Here's a little teaser that they... Oh no, it's coming a little bit later. So I was one of the curators, and my job was to, let's say, give my perspective as a creative coder and curate the works from that sphere. Here's the first video they created. Pretty amazing campaign. Yeah, it's hosted by Studio Dumba. Probably you know them from Rotterdam. Really cool. And was there. Rotterdam is so nice. Who of you has been in Rotterdam yet? Rotterdam? Yeah, you, of course. Okay, anyone else? It's a really nice city, very modern. Yeah, this is a crazy building, like a big mirror, it's really crazy architecture. I was really impressed. And these are the curators, on the right there's Connor Campbell, Koos Breen, the two are from Yonk and me, and also Lisa Ennebase from Studio Dumba. And yeah, so it was a fantastic time. I really, really enjoyed it. And yeah, I was curating the whole thing. We were 16 hours watching videos. We watched 3,600 works, which was insane. Imagine you're sitting in a room 8 hours, 10 seconds clipped. We had to curate them, and it was really intense. And my category that I introduced to the demo festival was called Algorithmic Adventures. So here are some pretty nice works. I didn't put the music instead, so this is a work by Sander Sturing. Here's some work by someone I don't know, but I really like it. Yeah, Jonas Ersland, pretty awesome. Dye Ink, I saw this guy on Twitter, and I think what he does is amazing. Pretty coded aesthetics, really nice. And of course, Monica Lozada, there's a little typo in it. I met her in Barcelona, she's amazing. She's a very young graphic design student, and she does a lot of work. Here she used Excel to create this animation. And at that time, she was an intern at Studio Dumba. So let's skip this. Be a little bit quicker. So, the event happened in October last year in the Central Station of Amsterdam. And yeah, it was really amazing. I had the feeling that my whole Instagram feed was in Amsterdam on spot, which was absolutely insane. So we had amazing conversations. And this is the after movie that Studio Dumba created for Demo Festival. 5,000 screens across the Netherlands, all showing motion graphics for 24 hours. That was really absolutely insane, and I really enjoyed it so much. So yeah, it was really awesome. Sander Sturing of Studio Dumba was there, I think, last year, right? Yeah. Cool. Some impressions, like the whole Central Station was kind of an exhibition of these works. And yeah, this is my work that I submitted. And yeah, so there was also a discussion panel there. And yeah, let's go through it very quickly. So many photos, my goodness. Okay, so I was speaking to the curational team, and I thought, oh, my goodness, they probably came to the idea of demo, which actually means design in motion, through the demo scene. Right? They said, no, we have no idea what that actually is. And I was like, okay, wow, you should. And so I decided to give a talk about the demo scene at Demo 2022, and this is the talk I gave there. So let's do this. Starting with a little story. So 1989, actually this should be 1985 because that's the year when I've been born. We've been working, or people have been working with these floppy disks, right? This is a floppy disk that can store like one photo, like a bad resolution photo. This is a little bit better, still very bad, 1.4 megabytes. You know, there were different times. And this is not me. I found this image on the internet, but that was pretty much how my room looked back then. I was working with a computer. I played some games. One of my favorite games, maybe yours too, was Prince of Persia, right? Who played Prince of Persia? Hands up, amazing. Oh my goodness. That was so cool. So the story is you have to rescue this princess, and you have to do actually really dangerous things, like jumping over pits, and you know, it's really dangerous. Look. And I gotta admit now, I think it's the time to say my version was cracked. Not like yours, you all bought the game, I know, but mine was cracked. So, and that was pretty interesting what I just discovered back then, that there were some of these graphics. There was this cracked rows where it was a little bit like graffiti. Like artists put their intro to the very beginning of a computer game to say, hey, I just cracked this game, because that was probably pretty difficult. And from that, there was a little culture just evolving from that. It was called the crack throw scene, right? So these are a few crack throws I found on YouTube. Oh my goodness. They made this with code, right? There was not, no Photoshop, really. So that was really a lot of work. So from that, the demo scene came to the world. Like people started to experiment with programming and very low-tech technologies to make motion graphics in the very beginning just with code, and that was then the demo scene. It was kind of released from this idea of crack throw, so there was more like an art movement. In the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, maybe around that time. It was pretty much about pushing the technical limits of hardware and software. So it was all about tinkering with the limitations of the computer. Really, really nice. So these people also didn't have an internet in the beginning. That's something we always have to think about. Like, they submitted compact discs or floppy disks to festivals and so on. And yeah, really, really exciting. So here are a few examples. I was digging deep into the rabbit hole of YouTube and the demo scene. And I gotta admit, some of these videos are double speed, and also the music is very fast. But, times changed. TikTok, tempo. Let's do this. Great, right? I love that. It's pretty awesome. Here's another one. Now, okay, please hold on. Make sure you're sitting very comfortable, because this is going to be... Wait. Oh my God. This is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. But it is very impressive. Because if you think about the technology they did this with, yeah, let's not speak about taste. Also, don't look too long on this piece. It's really, really bad for you. But it is made with code, and these people just created a custom 3D engine. There are shadows in it. There are reflections, physics. Oh my goodness, this is crazy, right? This is so much work. Also, let's get back to the slide. Whoops. Just look at the reflections in these round things. Wait. Oh my God, I'm messing it up. Play. Nice, right? Yeah. That is the demo scene. Cool. So the code that they wrote for that kind of applications was completely different than that we know today, because the code we write nowadays is much closer at the human way of thinking. But for that kind of code, they needed charts. They needed to organize the code with flow charts, and it was really, really difficult to write it. So it is a big achievement and a big cognitive challenge. So yeah, so cool. And also, there were some demo scene meetups happening in Europe, like Assembly. This is how it looked. Like the largest LAN party you have ever seen in your life. Let's zoom into it. Like, people bringing their computer to, work there together. Which, I don't know. Does it make sense? I don't know. I think that's great. But yeah. So there was one competition for the demo sceners, and there was one one collective called the Future Crew, amazing name, I think, and they won this competition with this video, and it's also a little bit faster than it should be, but let's check it out. I always get goosebumps when I watch this video, really, it's so epic. Yeah, so the topic that I spoke at the demo festival was like, actually, the demo festival, we are the new demo scene, right? Because we have different tools today, but in a way, this is one of the roots that, that we have when we do motion design, when we do graphic design, that's motion and creative coding. So I'm a creative coder, as you know, and I was experimenting with this perspective of seeing creative coding as a part of the new demo scene. So let's speak about, creative coding in the realms of motion design. That was my topic. So maybe someone ever used this tool? Processing? Raise your hands. Amazing. That's cool. Yeah, processing is a very nice programming language because it is very close to human thinking when you create something visual, right? So it makes a lot of sense how these functions work, what their names are, and in which order you put them to the code editor. And you actually can create very nice interactive things with just a few lines of code. That's the language I use for my teaching in my professional work. This is Frida Mnake, a professor from Bremen and actually one of the, one of the superheroes from the computer art scene. And he had a really nice idea that I would like to present you today. So, because I was always in the discussion with the motion designers that asked me, okay, why should I really do the big effort, learn to code when I can use After Effects to create something visual very quickly? And I think there are many, many reasons. I could speak like hours about it, but one is especially interesting for people that create design. So Frida Mnake says that coded design or computer arts actually consists of two parts, a subface and a surface. And we can translate this to two different terms, like there's a backside and a front side, or a back end and a front end. There's something invisible, which is the algorithm, and something visible, which is what the algorithm actually creates. There's an algorithm and output, or a process that we design through writing code, and a result. So the interesting thing is that the subface can actually express something very specific. And now we come to the term generative design, which probably confuses some of you guys. It confused me quite a lot of time. Let me shed light into this term. So I always explain generative design by using a pattern that I call the input-output pattern. So it's actually nothing more than taking something and transforming it into something different. And I use this mind map to illustrate this. And at the moment it looks very complex to you, I guess, but actually it's pretty simple. So you can use any kind of data source. It could be, I don't know, like a Kinect camera or your smartphone, your face detection, emotions, algorithms from nature, or, I don't know, a book, maybe Harry Potter, or whatever kind of stuff you read. There's a lot of stuff. Actually, this is just a symbolic representation of the possibilities on the input side. And you can transform it into something new, a medium, like a screen. No, not a screen, but graphics, flexible visual identities, an installation, architecture, audio. You can generate poems out of it. And this is a huge world of possibilities, actually. It's really, really large. And, one example could be, and let me just get back to that slide quickly. So you could actually take two dart arrows, and just drop in onto that, onto that mind map, and have a new project idea. So, for example, let me just go through this again. Back to the next slide. Yeah, for example, You can take your favorite book. I don't know what kind of stuff you read. I don't ask you now, but and transform it into a chair, right? Or you could use music to shape the building of a concert house or whatever. So the possibilities are really, really large. You could take dance and create jewelry out of it. So it's a huge world of possibilities. Data into motion, interaction into motion. So the cool thing about that is that the surface can actually generate many different, the subface can generate many different surfaces. So you've got an algorithm and you can tweak it, and that's what you do when you do creative coding. You tweak the algorithm and create many variations, and the output can always look very different based on how you define the algorithm. And I know this is super abstract, but that's how it works. Let me give you a few examples from my portfolio, mostly self-commissioned projects that hadn't a brief or a client. I really, this is how I work mostly. I do a lot of research, I do a lot of experimentation, projects that come from my proactivity, from my intrinsic motivation, things that interest me. And one was called Lifeline. So what I did, I created a database with many events that had an influence onto my life, right? I'm born in 1985, and I actually created a WordPress database, which is, don't take WordPress for this is a hassle. But yeah, I was able to put experience that I have from on a private level as well as on a global level, like things happened in history, and yeah, put them into my like biography. It's like a biography bit. And I created this video out of that. So I wrote a processing application that takes the data from this database through an API. It's very fast, sorry for that, but and it tells the story of my life in a generative visual, right? There are many things in it, like my first kiss, and the election of Barack Obama, my holidays in Sri Lanka. Red is private, blue is on a global level, and yeah, that was a lot of fun, actually. Fun fact, I was asked by Russia today to use that to narrate the Second World War. And I said, of course, I said no. My goodness. Embarrassing. Anyway, another project which illustrates this in a much simpler way is the bug project I did like 2017, a long time ago. Maybe you guys know the Prelude in C, which is a beautiful piece for piano. Yeah? Like this, right? It's just actually, it's just an array of notes. It's just 16th notes, one after the other. And I created I found a MIDI file on the internet, and there was a nice conversion tool that I used to generate a JSON file from that MIDI file. And going one step further, I was able to create an array of just numbers, right? So this is not the final step, because in the end, I also compress the whole numbers into one octave. This is music theory, don't worry about that. But I was able to create, to visualize the hidden patterns in the music of Johann Sebastian Bach, right? So these are generated visuals, and this graphic is completely generated by the music. So we could use this for identities. Let's think about a Bach project, like think about, a festival about Johann Sebastian Bach. We could put this into the architecture. We could use this for motion graphics, for whatever you can think of, right? This is a huge world, and just showing a little glimpse into the possibilities here. So, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Okay, and here's a applied project, which I did with my very good friend, Martin Lorenz, by toolpoints.net. It was a campaign for an exhibition in Barcelona, a museum in Barcelona called the CCCB. Let me try to put this in Spanish. The Centro de Cultura. Oh my goodness, I'm butchering this. Raquel, help me. No, it's fine. Okay. She speaks Spanish much better than me. I speak very bad Spanish. Okay. Yeah, so the question was, Martin already had these visuals, and these are photographies from the end of the process, but we were thinking about what could we do with creative coding to enhance the system and enhance the identity of that exhibition. And I started to, just write this very early prototype. Whoops, to explore possibilities with the system. So I thought about maybe I could create a tool that anybody could use, and yeah, that was really fun. So I started to see that there's a lot of potential in the system, and this was the film that they used for their marketing. So I wrote a custom stop-motion tool for the project, which they used to create, or we used to create this film. So every tile is just one click with a mouse. It was a lot of work, actually. And the budget was very small, so yeah. But it was exciting, right? I mean, think of that. You can use an identity, which is very flexible, and even create an application. And we did that to let the users create their own patterns, their own typographic assets, and maybe share them on social media. Well, nobody did that because it's not so easy to, have a direct connection with Instagram, for example. But it was a really nice case study and a prototype to show that it's actually possible. Nice. Wow, I'm already, I'm 20 minutes. Okay, cool. So, my personal approach on teaching creative coding is, I see it as a school of thought, right? Because what you learn through coding creatively is a broad range of things that are really helpful, not just in design, but also to shape your personal perspective onto digital technologies. And that's something that drives me very much. Like, I think it is really important that we find our own perspective and are very critical with the technologies that we work every day with. Creative coding is a great tool to learn that. And yeah, it's actually not really a tool, because discussion is often like, can we put processing in a row with the Adobe Creative Suite or even Adobe Firefly? Yeah, you can do that, but then you also see a very small part of the potential of creative coding, but it's much more. It's a tool to create tools also. It's something I really like. Designing systems instead of a medium, right? It's really about writing code that defines a system that in the end can generate any medium, like in theory, right? For print, for digital, for animation, whatever you want. And yeah, that's it for me. I'm much too short, but yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation. I have a question.
Sure.
Why have you decided to delve into creative coding in the first place? Or like, what was the moment where you started to be interested in that? Because I don't think you've mentioned it that much in your
That's a beautiful question. And I have to say, I started to dive into creative coding because I saw the beautiful culture around it. I saw the community. I saw the thoughts around open source, around also political and social topics that were bound to the community of processing and creative coding in general. And I started to do meetups and gather with people that also are interested in creative coding. And also through these connections and learning real-life people, not just on my computer, but connecting with people from the real world and seeing how amazed they are, just like me, from this topic. This is probably the main driver why I had the power also to go that deep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And before that, you worked as a graphic designer? What was your path, until you hit that?
That's a good question. Yeah, I had a degree in graphic design, communication design from Münster School of Design, and my father had 30 years as an agency. At some time, we had 3 offices in Berlin, Magdeburg, and Paderborn, like quite a large agency. And I grew up with graphic design. But I was always looking for, let's say, something that goes beyond that and helps me to create a perspective onto design that is different from, let's say, the mainstream also. And that was something that I really liked.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And how would you shape the difference as you're a teacher as well, in difference in teaching, let's say, creative people coding versus, attending a school as a developer or somebody like going to learn coding on a specialized faculty? Like, what's the difference there?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, creative coding is a very, how to say, accessible way to learn programming. It's really accessible, especially for people from the sphere of design, because you see something visual, a visual representation of your algorithm that makes the entry level to programming very simple. And if you just make it to a specific point in the learning process, you will see that you will be able to learn any other technology, because the patterns, like, are always the same. You have functions, loops, conditional statements, variables, arrays. It's all the same in every technology. And just seeing that pattern is magical. So, especially for the designers, I think creative coding is a fantastic entrance into the world of programming.
Thank you. Are there any questions in the audience? Tim? Yeah, we have there. So just wait for a mic. Hope it's turned on.
Hello, Tim.
Yeah. Hi.
I would like to ask you, what does teaching mean to you?
Well, it's also a great question. So many great questions here. When I was 25 and I was studying design, the company of my father was always a magnetic field in my life, right? It always kind of dragged me into the direction to join the company, but I didn't want that. Back then, I didn't actually know it. So when I was 25, I was really, while studying, I was getting into a crisis, because I felt, this is not really what I want to do, right? I don't want to work in an agency. I want to work with people. And that's why I also did some really strange detours I was working in a hospital, and social work and that kind of stuff always attracted me a lot. I wanted to be in contact with real people and working on things that I find meaningful. And then I started to teach being a tutor in the university where I was studying back then, and I thought, this is my talent, this is what I can do, my greatest talent actually, and I felt like this is what I want to do, yeah. So this is the background, I think.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
More questions from the audience? Yeah, we have one there.
Hi, it's very amazing. Thank you for your work and that you're sharing. But can you recommend someone, another, to more inspiration of this creative coding? Maybe what inspired you, and other designers, maybe?
Designers that inspire me?
No, in this area, in creative coding.
Wow, there are so many. I always mention Yeban Song from South Korea. She's just amazing. She uses just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I don't know, Raquel Myers. She's there. I really like this idea of low tech. So I'm pretty much into the idea of really reducing the technologies to the very basics. And I don't know, Vera van der Sijp is great. Xavery, I don't know, is Kiekelski, I think, is really amazing. So yeah, if you want, just go to my website. I do interviews with exactly these people, and you will find them in my blog. And there are loads of people that present their work there.
I would add from one of the last editions of Mouvo, maybe Andreas Gysin.
Andreas Gysin, oh my goodness, I love this guy. He's amazing. We chat sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, we'd had him several years ago.
He's amazing, my goodness.
And once we're talking about this, do you also find any inspiration in, like the very beginning of computer art, or and maybe trying to reinvent this approach in the courses you do, or
Absolutely.
like how do you pick the specific visual that you've built the lessons about?
That's a good question. Again, I have been creating a course about Vera Molnar's work, but I have to say I have a technique, like a creative technique that I always use I just realized that not that long ago, I always try to do something completely different than creative coding and try to get my inspiration from there. So I'm reading a lot about philosophy, about history, things that, I just go with the flow, and I love when these things connect, right? When I see, okay, I can take a metaphor from there and put it into my curriculum, for example. So I try to not be that much inspired by the things that are obvious. So, but anyway, of course, Vera Molnar and these, pioneers are amazing, and yeah, it's really, really cool. Yeah.
Okay, more questions in the audience? Yeah, Remco here is one.
Hi. Yeah, from my experience, designers tend to be kind of scared of coding.
Yeah.
There's kind of this narrative of, left brain, right brain, programming is not creative. Do you feel the same? And if so, why do you think that is? And how can designers, or how can, how would I say this? It's not that designers have to code, of course, but how can they kind of bridge the gap between coding and design?
Wow. There are two aspects in here. First of all, I want to say, I have the feeling that the creative industry just captured this term, creativity, for itself, right? And says we are the creatives and the others are the technicians, which is complete bullshit. Because programming is something where you need a lot of creativity, right? You need a lot of problem solving and stuff. And also the creative work that I mostly see from agencies is also nothing else than recreating that has already been there. So this is a really strange way of looking at it, I think. It's a big problem. So when I work for agencies, and I've been working for quite a few, like for projects for IBM, I did something for the New York Times, I was working for museums, creating their websites, that kind of stuff. And the problem is that there's no common ground, there's no terminology that they can speak at the same language. And also, by tradition, the designer has always a different attitude onto the technologist. They're always looking from the top bottom. It's a top-bottom relationship. And this always, probably, mostly leads to catastrophic workflows. Because the developers tend to say, this is not possible, because they are not discussing what actually could be possible then, right? So I was getting quite lots of briefs where everything was completely set in the beginning, like this is how it should look like, this is exactly how it should work, and these are exactly the mechanics. And this is not how good projects come to life. You need to get in a conversation, and I gotta say, this is something I learned from Sander, who's a good friend of mine working at Studio Dumbar, and we discussed in this a lot. It's a lot about going out together, the creative directors with the technologists, having a beer, being on an eye level, becoming friends and developing a common ground, developing techniques with the interest, of building this intersection, building this, overlaps. And I would love to see this more, because this is, especially in smaller companies, not really working well.
Great. Any more questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, there and there, so we have two. Okay.
I love your questions, guys. So.
Well, I know Martin Lawrence, and I was wondering, maybe could the two of you make a course together on implementing processing and flexible visual systems together?
That's a funny thing, because we're actually working on exactly that, right?
Wow.
Yeah, Martin is a very good friend of mine. He's the reason why I was in Barcelona, and I'm kind of, I'm just in the intersection of going back home. I was 3 months there, and we are spending a lot of time together thinking about design education, and we are thinking about this. It's quite tough because there are some, terminological and it's some process we are currently in, and we're already designing the pages. So stay tuned about that.
Perfect. And Ivan has a question as well.
I have two questions, both related to the idea about wanting to be connected to other people, especially through your work. My first question, and feel free to answer one or both or neither, but my first question is, with your students and your community, what are the ways that you engage with your students, and do you try to cultivate relationships between the different students or collaboration? And then my second question, which is a bit bigger question, do you find that by practicing your craft, you also feel more connected to other people? Which is something I've been really struggling with and thinking a lot about deeply. It seems paradoxical that dedication to your craft could bring you to other people. And I'm just curious how you went from experiences in hospitals or social work into creative coding, which seems to put you far away from those people.
Yeah, that's good. Well, this is a big challenge for me because I'm very communicative. I love to meet people. I love to speak to people. But if I know alone in my community of patrons, there are 700 people who probably all of them have lots of questions. So for me, it's really challenging to make sure, I cannot answer all the questions. I have a Discord server where they can discuss this, and I'm very, very happy that I've got some very active members that take care of the beginners and answering the questions there. I maintain very intense relationships with people that really stand out the crowd because they really want to learn it. And then, when I see that this is happening, then I'm really very interested in learning from them because I'm as well a student, right? I want to learn how they learn to make my curriculum better. And these conversations are really powerful. And actually, many of them started to become developers later on. Like they started to, from graphic design or from something completely different, they started to work with code and enjoy it and feel the same passion as me. And that makes me feel very grateful. Yeah. The second question, can you repeat that? Sorry.
I think the collaboration between students. If you
that's actually a good idea, yeah.
Or how do I reinterpret this?
My second question was related to the seeming contradiction of wanting to be close with people and interact with people in your work, and then doing that by dedicating yourself to the craft of staring at a computer screen and going through code.
Yeah, you gotta know, probably I know that you are working on a very complex project, right? But I do as well, but the project I'm working on is something that the people from the community know. So that means it's very connected, right? With what actually they are my peers. They are the source of my inspiration as well. And in the end, this is a very fruitful process and a fruitful conversation. But it's so overwhelming sometimes. So I really also have to learn to disconnect from this because I get, you can get really stressed when you feel like the opposite, how's it called? Like to feel, oh, I have to answer these people and they ask me, hey, can you help me with my code on Instagram? And oh my goodness, I can't. I don't have the time. So my job also is to learn to disconnect from that and also make sure I don't burn out from that, yeah. Sure, but it works well. I've got it in control.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you. Thanks.